Hello and welcome to the Trusted Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Johnson, and we've got a couple of guest speakers today. We've got the Algers, and they're going to be talking about insurance, personal insurance for your vehicle, and if we have time, we're going to jump into other types of personal insurance. So, guys, thank you for joining us today.
So glad to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Just to recap what we do here on the Trusted Podcast, we look to bring in experts in their field to talk about key issues that people face, and that maybe it's not on a regular basis, and so it's things that they're not super familiar with, and so we want to talk about things that they should be aware of, and then also how they can find a trusted individual to help them out with making those decisions and getting those things in place. So with that in mind, give us a little bit of background about yourselves and your company and what makes you guys experts in the field of personal insurance.
Mm-hmm. You want to start?
Well, I've been with Allstate for about 2 years, and I am an agent. We have people working for us and with us, and our primary business is with Allstate, but they're a great company, and we really enjoy working with them.
I was working with Dad at Allstate, and it has been a great business, but sometimes we saw certain customers were not a perfect fit for them. So I have instead opened a brokerage as well here in Las Vegas, Castle Insurance Group, where we represent multiple different carriers and can quote people through, at this time, 8 different insurance carriers like Progressive and Nationwide. So we're just trying to get people covered with great coverages at a great price. So I'm kind of newer in being as a business owner in this field. We just started in January of this year, but have a good time learning from all of these different carriers and seeing the needs in the valley.
All right, awesome. Well, let's jump right in. So let's start with car insurance. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they go to buy car insurance?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people just fixate on price, and I get it because majority of the ads, the commercials they get is all about price. And I think they go to a lot of the different carriers, especially the online ones, the carriers that may not be physically there in the city that they're in, and they may not even talk to the same person twice, and they never look at their coverages. They don't understand what the coverages are, and they just worry about the price and what's the cheapest for them, and those carriers do sell them insurance, and they are legal to drive, but I don't think they really fully understand the consequences of insurance and what it really is there for, and how it can actually help them rather than hinder them just because it's taking money out of their bank account.
I want to expand on that just a little bit. So in Nevada, the state minimums are $25,000, $50,000, and that's what everybody looks for, especially like right now where everybody's kind of nervous with what's going on in our economic environment and people are laid off. We're having a lot of people call and wanting to see how can they save money, and I totally want to be sensitive to that. But sometimes if you're only wanting the very basic coverages, when you actually have an accident occur, if you hit a big old beautiful King Ranch truck because you were texting, like everybody cheats and does that. We wish they wouldn't, but they do. But if they're not paying attention, or you just happen to be distracted on the road, or you just get into an accident because of a miscommunication in driving with another driver, you'll see that oftentimes there's not enough money there to cover the cost of either the injuries to the other person or to the damages that were caused by the vehicles if you went with those state minimums. And that stinks, and you as an attorney or those in the field know that this is where it can really burn people, because the insurance will do their job and pay out up to $50,000 for that policy. But if it happens to be costs above that, well, now that falls upon that driver and owner of that policy. They're responsible for all those additional costs. So for just a few dollars more, sometimes they could have been insured up to $300,000. And so I just would like them to not have their wages garnished or be in litigation and be haunted by something like that just because they wanted to save $20 a month,
Right. Well, and I think people misunderstand and think that, okay, my max is 50, and so if it's damaged more than that, then they just don't get anything, and that's not true at all. It's the insurance company's not going to pay that much, but you will be responsible for that. And so,
Yeah.
if you have personal assets, you could lose your home, you could lose your bank account, like you said, garnish wages, though it can be very impactful. So the state minimums are just what the minimum is to drive. It's not necessarily what the recommended amount is. That's going to be different for every situation, but I think that's a very good point. And then I think something that I've seen over and over again is uninsured and underinsured insurance. So can you guys speak to that? Because I think that's probably the first thing that's cut off when we're talking about price comparisons.
Yes, actually, I really wanted to make sure we talked about this today. Uninsured and underinsured is an optional coverage here in the state of Nevada. It's sometimes mandatory in other states, but here you can elect to have it or not. And I'll tell you, a lot of people don't see the value in it. They just kind of feel like, well, gosh, my price because it can be a very costly insurance to have. But if you don't have it, boy, you could really be in a bad way. Nevada, our rates here are really high, and it's for several reasons. One, we had a huge influx and a growth in the Las Vegas Valley after the Great Recession. Our population grew, but that also brought with it an increase of car theft. And we also have a great accessibility to alcohol in this city, and so there's a lot of intoxicated drivers. And so I just actually saw this the other day through U.S. News. Nevada is the 6th most expensive state for car insurance in the entire nation. So first of all, I hate that it has to be that way, but it's true. And if you live in the Las Vegas Valley, you pay between $300 and $500 more for your policy than somebody else in one of the rural parts of Nevada. And that's just because statistically there's more accidents here, there's more theft, and there's more intoxicated driving. So when you have uninsured and underinsured insurance, what happens is, let's just say I have somebody who hits me and takes off, right? That happens all the time. Now, I don't have a way, everything is going to fall on me, those costs, because I don't have a way to actually cover those costs unless I have this insurance that's going to come out of my pocket, or if I had that coverage, insurance will cover those, the damage to my vehicle, medical injuries to myself or to somebody else in the vehicle with me. It's just unfortunate in Las Vegas, where we are working, that happens very frequently. Or you may have somebody who's, let's say, a teenage driver who's 18, and their insurance is so expensive because statistically they're a higher risk. So they pay more money out, and so of course they go with cheaper coverages, so it can be something they can afford. So if they had the state minimums at 25 and 50, but let's say they hit you, your car is totaled, and you've got 3 people in the car that need to go to the hospital, but you didn't have uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, now those costs are going to fall on you. And everybody kind of feels like their health insurance would pick up their injuries. That's not the case all the time. You have to check with your healthcare or with your insurance that you have for healthcare, because sometimes they will be covered, but if it's sometimes been caused in a vehicle accident, they don't want to cover those costs because you could have had additional insurances for that. So check with your healthcare insurance and see if they would cover injuries incurred in an automobile accident. So that's just one. I hate to see people wave off the value of insured, underinsured. I know it costs a little more, but it comes in handy out here. We have a friend who was hit by a drunk driver driving the wrong direction on the road, and he was an underinsured driver. So there was a small amount of money paid out. Well, he went to jail, and now they're stuck on the hook and went through bankruptcy, and he continues to go through, physical therapies and all kinds of rehabilitation due to the injuries incurred. He was involved. It was a rollover accident. He was hit so hard. And it's so sad because all those costs fell upon that family that very financially destroyed them, and they're just still digging out of that hole from that accident. So I just really would express to people to please don't just wave that off. Actually see the value in that, because that could sure save you, especially in a big old city where there's a lot of potential for people to hit and run.
And if I could add to that, uninsured, underinsured, and we are just specific to Nevada. So if other people are watching this, they may want to check in their specific states. But for Nevada, uninsured, underinsured only covers medical. So we do have a lot of people that say, well, my car's old, I don't really need that. But that is comprehensive and collision coverage on your insurance policy. The uninsured, underinsured is for medical. And so, yeah, if somebody hits you and they have 2550, if there's 2 people in your vehicle and they're hurt and they have $75,000 each of injuries, there's a huge gap there, $50,000 gap per person that could be, not covered by an insurance company and even the health insurance company. So it's always good to look into that, and just you never know what's going to happen, and that's why we have health insurance. That's why we have auto insurance. and it's always good to just make sure that you're properly covered.
Yeah, and I would add to another reason why we have high amounts of policy premiums here is we have a lot of injury attorneys here in Las Vegas. It's the only major metropolitan area where you see more billboards for attorneys than any other type of business out there. But the thing is, they wouldn't be advertising if there weren't that many accidents going on. You have a melting pot of all different people. You have the alcohol, you have tourists, you have kind of the worst drivers from everywhere coming in, and so it's a perfect mix for all those accidents. And so, that's why those attorneys are advertising, because there is enough business out there, and so you should have that uninsured motorist coverage. So, thank you for talking about that. Let's talk about going back to getting insurance. So, what are some things that people can do to make their application easier and get through the underwriting process quicker?
Well, I think if they, most people are presently insured. I mean, there's very few people that are out shopping for the first time. Most people were on their parents' policy. So, I would say for even younger drivers, kids that are on their parents' policy, ask their parents about it. Have access to that. Look at it and find out what you have there and understand that. If you are shopping around for price or better coverage or something like that, understand what you have at that point and take a good look at it as well. And then also find a great company that I would say if at all possible, sit down with somebody. If you have somebody that's in the town where you're at, sit down with them and have a great conversation with them to understand that. If not, do understand that, we all know that there are scammers out there, but I would say that majority of the reputable companies, I wouldn't even say the majority, all of the companies that you deal with, they are licensed agents, they are background checked, and so, but they will be asking you for some confidential information, your birth date, your address, and sometimes your social security number, and just to know that does help with the ratings. It helps get a price. I mean, a lot of times you can quote that information without, or you can quote it without that information, but you don't really get a good solid price. I mean, in today's world with all the analytics and all the computer databases and that, I don't even want to fathom a guess on how many different things that computer or insurance company uses to rate a driver, with age and they go off of the zip code that you're at because they know the amount of claims that were in that zip code. They know the accidents in there. So, don't really get too upset about the price, because we do know most people are good drivers, and people really kind of stick with that. And they say, I'm a good driver, I shouldn't be paying that much. Well, I understand that, but you may be in a very, very risky zip code. And you may have a vehicle that may be stolen more. And insurance companies have access to all that information, and it comes down to that price and what they're willing to take on as far as that risk goes.
One thing I just wanted to add, since we're working at home with the COVID-19 situation, our producers are wonderful people, but we're all working from home, like we're in our home right now, and we do have to acquire that sensitive information, and it makes people very nervous over the phone because they're just talking to us, and it's not face to face. We can't invite them into the office to make them feel more comfortable and feel more secure in sharing that information. So it is best, and it is when we are gathering that information, like a social security number or a driver's license number, people become very nervous and scared about that. So one thing I would counsel people on that is cybersecurity is a huge, big deal. So you really shouldn't be texting or emailing that information over to your agent. That really should just be gathered over the phone, where that information will not be, it can be, inputted directly into the carrier sites, where we can just put that information in, and they start using that, like Dad was mentioning, to come up with a rate or a premium that insurance carrier is willing to offer you to insure you. And so don't be nervous about that sensitive information, but don't text it, don't email it, because you don't want that to get into the wrong hands, even if your agent happened to be hacked, if they haven't yet transferred it into a secure rater service or into the carrier site. I just want to make sure people are safe, and just if they could give it over by voice over the phone, that's a more secure way of protecting their information.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I would second that. All right. We've talked a little bit about price shopping, but is there any negative effects to doing the price shopping like on a yearly basis, where you're switching carriers frequently? Does that affect the rates? Do you get better rates if you do that, or is it one of those things where if you're loyal, you're going to get a better deal?
You want to start, Thad?
Yeah, I would say that's a very good question, and I would probably say that is more carrier specific,
Okay.
depending on the carrier that you're with. But I would definitely say that there's definitely a loyalty there that will be translated to your price. Do you really want to jump around? I mean, ask that question. I mean, if you have somebody that you've built a relationship, they know you, they've seen you grow. I mean, if you're 20 years old and you drive a 15-year-old vehicle, and then next thing you know, 5 years later, you're married, you're buying a home, and if you're with one carrier that know you, they may just still be underinsuring you at that point. So as far as price goes, I would say yes. In general, there is some loyalty there, but at the same time, maybe that insurance company may not be suited for you. So it might be good to shop around a little bit for price and for coverage, and maybe find a company that might be better suited to you. So I would also say, drive safe. Don't text while you're driving. Be a good steward on the road, and also take advantage of everything that those carriers offer. There's usually a full pay discount, and that could save you several $100s every 6 months. Today, now every phone, everybody has a phone that has an app, and every company has some sort of discount for going paperless. So if you have the ability, don't have your bills sent to your home. That usually gives you a discount by going paperless. And to have your bill not sent to your home, that saves you some money. I would say probably the majority of the companies have some sort of software on your phone or that you plug into your phone, into your car, that monitors your driving and sees if you're safe. I can speak for Allstate specifically. We have something called DriveWise that actually, if you participate, it saves you 3% on your policy, and then it can save you anywhere from 2 to 15% every 6 months on your policy, depending on how you drive. And it really only does 3 things. It's if you go over 80 miles an hour, if you hard brake, and the time of day of driving. So there's specific times of day that you drive that are statistically more dangerous. It doesn't increase your rate or anything like that. It only gives you money back. And so people do get concerned about being tracked and having their rate goes up. We've seen people save 10% on a $2,000 policy. That's $200. So take advantage of everything that those carriers offer, because, people call in and complain and say, well, my price is too high. And we say, well, we could probably save you 10%. And people say, well, no, I don't want to do that. Well, I would say it's kind of a two-way street. Take advantage of what your carrier offers and call your carrier if you're not, if you're not familiar with what they have, and see if there's something you can do there first before you just jump ship and run to another carrier.
There are several discounts. I just want to add kind of to what Thad was saying, that a lot of people, if you did talk to your carrier, ask them what are all the available discounts, because let's say you have a teenage driver coming on, well, there's good student discounts. And they're so expensive, so anything like that helps. There's even, if your teenage driver was to pass a driver's course and has a completion of, certificate of completion from that, there's a discount for that. Homeowners, there's tons of policies, ways to have savings there. Do you have a fire extinguisher in your home? Great, there's a savings for that. Do you have a burglar system, even monitored, like with cameras at home? There's a savings for that. There's millions, not millions, there's so many ways that drivers, by non-smoking, usually there's a discount for that. So make sure you find out all the discounts that are available to you. We typically see people shopping around after they've had an accident or after there's been an incident, something that caused a significant rate increase. So if you are going to shop around, I would recommend that you do find a company that comes highly recommended. You don't want to just go with somebody because they're nice, right? You want to go with somebody that you feel can be a trusted advisor to you and actually make sure that you're properly covered. And I understand people needing to stay at a certain price point, because when you only have so many dollars and you have to make those stretch, I understand. So shopping, I totally get that. But make sure you're aware of all the discounts available, and then make sure that that doesn't sacrifice your coverage, because sometimes you will find a significant savings just by going to a different carrier. So another thing people are not aware of is a lot of times you can get locked in for a 12-month policy, so you don't have to do it every 6 months. A lot of our carriers, like Progressive and Travelers, actually offer a 12-month policy. Those are typically a little bit more expensive than a 6-month policy, not a huge amount, but that's because those carriers are taking on a greater risk. And in the event that you were to have something happen during that year, they would still keep you covered at that lower rate. So it costs just a little bit more to go with a 12-month policy, but you're not going to be reshopping in 6 months and seeing a rate increase. You're going to lock in a lower rate, just a little bit higher than you would pay per month for the 6-month premium, but it will last for an entire year, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. It's there when you need it. You've got the coverage, but you're not in 6 months now going to be shopping again. Or I just think I really like the brokerage because we're able to shop all those carriers for you. And if we see that you're going to be experiencing a rate increase before you even know it, we're going to know about it. And we're going to be able to take in and see exactly what are the other insurance carriers willing to do, or how will they cover you, and then we'll call you with that information and see if there's a better fit for you while not sacrificing coverage.
I can attest to the year-round thing. It actually saved me a ton of money by going to a year and paying a year in advance. I ended up saving like $200 a month by paying the year in advance, which was amazing to me that just by paying a year in advance, I was saving that much. So yeah, look at the different options, and if you have the means to do that, it can be a huge savings. And then you just save up, set aside a portion each month for what you would normally spend on the insurance, and then you just have it for the next time around.
That's right.
All right, so let's switch to the accident side of things. I think this is probably the more pertinent part to people. They want to know what should they be doing if they happen to get in an accident to make sure that everything processes smoothly, especially if it's not them at fault.
So I used to be a firefighter here in Las Vegas. Loved it. It was great. It was probably my most favorite calls to go on were the vehicle accidents, because there's so much to do, so much to do for scene safety and just securing the vehicles and stuff. But that being said, scene safety is a really big deal. So if you're involved in an accident, it's really important. If you are obstructing traffic, if you can safely move out of the way and move your vehicle to the side of the road, we would like you to do that so that you don't remain a target out there in the middle of a lane where somebody else, maybe not paying attention, comes up and hits the scene from behind. So if you can safely move your vehicle over to the side of the road, it's really great to have those little flares or little the reflective triangles in the vehicle to kind of put behind your car, so drivers behind you know that there is a stalled vehicle or a stopped vehicle ahead. Make sure you check on everybody in your vehicle and those in the other car. Call 911. That's the most important thing, to start getting medical treatment to those that are injured. And then, but the thing that we would see at these accident scenes a lot of times, people are terrified. They were just in this horrible accident. You're not in your right mind. You're just shaking, and you can't hardly understand and believe that this really happened to you. So it's really nice to have processes in place to help you in that moment where you're not probably really thinking about what should I be doing. If you just keep, like in your glove box, a nice pen, a lot of carriers have an accident form that you can fill out where you'll collect information on the other driver. You'll be able to, input your information on your vehicle. Get the information for who the police officer was that responded to the site or to the scene of the accident so that you can later get that report of the accident. Write down any injuries. And if you can, be descriptive about the accident. What happened at the time that the accident occurred? What damage do you see on your vehicle and the other person's vehicle? Your phone is a beautiful tool to take pictures if it's safe to do so. and you're not injured, and if you want to record some scene, images, that's going to help the insurance carriers, because Nevada is not always a 100% at-fault state. Sometimes both carriers or both drivers will share a portion of responsibility for that accident. So if you can really paint a nice picture with your phone by taking multiple pictures and describing what happened at the scene of the accident, that's going to be able to help the insurance carriers. So once everybody's safe at the scene, collect information, make sure you find out, what jurisdiction you're in, so the police officer, do get a police officer to come. Sometimes people don't always do that, but that's really good for recording the details of the accident. And then there is going to be an official, police report made that everybody can reference. And usually the officer will be the one to go and collect the personal information for everybody involved, and that will be part of the police report. But then you do need to call your agent, let them know, and they'll get you in touch with the with the claims department and start making sure that you're going to be covered. And I just, first of all, want to make sure you're safe. Sometimes you don't realize you're even injured at the scene of an accident because you're so shaken. And it isn't for many hours later or even a couple days later you start to notice all the banged up pains that you start to recognize, the whiplash feeling, all these things that you didn't feel when you were stunned at that very moment. So by having a police report, and if they ask you if you're injured, just say, I don't know, I'm not sure, okay? If you need to, err on the side of going to get checked out at the hospital. These are just a few tips that will hopefully help you, and then make sure that you get in touch with your insurance agent, and they'll be able to get you involved with the claims process very quickly. Do you want to add to that?
No, you did really good, but I would definitely say, utilize the technology on your phone. Speaking from Allstate's standpoint, once again, we can file a claim in 5 or 10 minutes on your cell phone. They direct you around the vehicle, you take pictures of it, you enter the information, and you send it off. And that's typically, with smaller claims. I mean, if your car is totaled and out in the street, I wouldn't, be trying to file a claim right then. I would definitely secure the scene, like Summer said. But and at the same time too, make sure that you're with a carrier that's going to be very responsive, and make sure that they pay out the claims. That's, I would say, one of the biggest things that insurance companies pay for is claims. I mean, they could pay well over 50% of their revenue could be paid out in claims. And to minimize, most of these companies are profit driven. And so they try to get out of paying claims as much as possible. And so you may want to research and find out what companies are very responsive. Make sure that your car is fixed properly and not pay you less than what the repairs really are. I know, speaking from Allstate's standpoint, once again, we try to replace everything with OEM parts, so original equipment manufacturer parts, rather than getting parts that might work but aren't built to that specification for that vehicle as well. So you may want to look and research that and find out who's going to make sure that your car is fixed properly and in a timely manner.
Can I add one thing? I would collect the personal information for everybody involved in the accident, passengers included, and make sure that you get any witnesses information as well, because that's going to be able to help those carriers as they do an investigation on and are paying out on claims. So just everybody who's willing and witnessed, if you can collect their personal information, that's just going to help everybody in the end too.
Okay. Well, I think there's been an overall theme here today. It's looking at value versus just price shopping. So there's a lot of things that go into determining price, and there's also a lot of things, make sure you're getting value for that money and you're not just spending the bare minimum to get the coverage. Because you guys have brought up multiple points as far as what kind of value having an agent does. Now, how can people find a good, trusted insurance agent like yourselves instead of just having to go to the online forums? And I guess before you answer that, I want to assume this, but I just want to make sure, if somebody contacts you, they're going to get the same rates as if they go apply online. Is that true?
With Allstate, yes, that is true. I can attest to that.
Okay.
We have so many different carriers that we work with at our brokerage. Sometimes I like when they call us directly, because we may be aware and be able to put in place all of those discounts that we learn about. So I think it's really helpful to talk to a live person who can listen to your family's dynamic and be fully aware of the savings that could be available to you. So.
Okay. So how does someone go about? So how does someone go about finding a trusted advisor or agent? If let's say they're not in Las Vegas.
Okay, good idea. I'll start. One thing that I would recommend is people really do, if you do have good friends who have good recommendations, that's one good place to start if they've had a good experience with an agent. But make sure you're not just going for somebody because they're really nice, because really nice people may not be covering you right. They may be really great people, but we want to make sure that if you pick an agent, make sure it's somebody who picks up the phone. Make sure it's somebody who's actually constantly learning. There's a lot of certifications you can get in insurance to be like a certified insurance counselor. There's multiple things that they can be doing to keep improving themselves as agents and being aware of what's going on in the market around them and with the carriers that they represent. But another thing I would tell you is make sure that you have an agent that's willing to tell you the truth too. You don't want somebody who's just going to try and sell you the biggest, most expensive policy so they get a great commission from it, because that's not a good agent. The good agent is going to actually write insurance that's going to fit the needs of your family and try to work within the price that you've got, but they need to also be willing to stand up and say, all right, look, you've got a beautiful home, you've got a business, you've got 2 cars, you've got a lot of liabilities here. Maybe you should consider an umbrella. You want somebody that can also look at your whole picture and see where there might be gaps or see where there's liabilities or potentials where you're not fully covered. So make sure you have somebody that you trust that is not just, I don't believe in just, right now I actually happen to be quoting some people. And there's, at our brokerage, we can quote them through multiple carriers. Well, guess what? They don't know. I could pick the most expensive policy and try and sell that and the value behind that. I don't feel good at night doing that. I want to find the very best price that I can for my people, but also giving them the very best coverage. So I don't want you to go with somebody who's just wanting to sell you the biggest, most glorious policy because it's going to pad their pocket. Make sure you get somebody that's truly looking out for you. And I guess you'll just know this through interaction with them and through the recommendations from others. Google is full of reviews these days. If you can take the time to look at, see what other drivers have or policy owners have written about these agents, that will help you pick a good one too. But you want somebody responsive. You want somebody that will tell you the truth and help look for opportunities to protect you well, and will do it for a very fair price. That's my take. How about you, Thad?
I'm in total agreement. Yeah, you got to find somebody that is going to be very responsive. I mean, do you want to call and have a computer direct you around and drop the call? I can speak for my office. We're not perfect, but I would say 99% of the calls go answered within the 3rd ring. We answer. We're trying to be very responsive. We don't send you to computers and have you press numbers. We just answer the phone, and I think that's true for Summer's office.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a common thing we see amongst everybody that we talk to. That look, you need, and I think it's common in any industry, and unfortunately, there's just not a lot of people out there that do that. But responsiveness, it's always the #1 complaint against attorneys. I'm just pretty sure that's in most industries. They're honest with you. They're going to look out for your best interest, and they're going to get back to you. I think those are common things. What are some red flags that people would have if they're talking with somebody? Obviously there's the gut check, you can kind of tell right away, but what are some red flags that if somebody's saying these type of things or trying to do this, that people will know that they've got an agent who's just looking to pad their own pocket?
I would say first, they're just going right for the sale. They're pushing you to buy right then. And I would say also, is the agent hyper fixated on price? Are they just going off of price? Are they just giving you, here's what I can give you for this amount, and not even talking about the coverage? I think we've realized through this that the coverage is very important, and saving $20 a month right now, could result in $20,000 judgment against you down the road, and you may not even have known that you could have been undercovered. So I would say somebody's just pushing you into just getting you sold and not really explaining everything to you. And I would just say if you click really well with them, I mean, that would be a great thing as well. And but yeah, as far as red flags go, I mean, I would say, We love our carriers, we love who we're working with, but I would say majority of these companies do really want to care and really want to understand where you're coming from. So definitely don't, there are unfortunately scammers out there. We get calls every day wanting from the Social Security Administration and and that. So definitely shy away from them. But I would say that the biggest red flag is somebody that's just wants to get a sale, and you feel like they're just going to move on, and you may not even hear from them ever again.
That's kind of what I wanted to add. I think if you have somebody who, is right off the bat very responsive as you're looking for quotes and looking for business, but if you call them in the future and they don't respond or they don't get back to you, you don't feel welcome in their office, you show up at the office, they're never there. I feel like these are things that would make me feel like I don't know that this is the person I want representing me. So I just really believe that building a good relationship. I've heard you should have a good attorney, a good accountant, and a good insurance agent. People on your side that you feel could be real trusted advisors to you. Are they accessible to you? Do they take the time to listen to your needs? And I just think, like you mentioned, the gut check. If something feels off, just follow that. There's rarely ever been any kind of remorse or later it usually comes to light why you were feeling that way. So if you are feeling that way, like Thad was mentioning, to feel like you have a click with somebody that you can trust. But for me, it's a really big deal. If I'm doing business with somebody and I quit getting the calls back, that to me is kind of a red flag where I don't feel like they're truly interested in doing business and representing me well. So that's one thing that I tend to look for.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how can people here in Nevada get a hold of you if they want to reach out and talk to you guys?
My office is 702-623-7190. My email is thadalger@allstate.com. That's THADALGER@allstate.com. I'm trying to be as responsive as I can with the emails. And like I say, we answer the phone when you call. So we'd be more than happy to help anybody that's interested in Allstate.
So I'm Summer Alger with Castle Insurance Group, and we are right up on West Sahara and Rainbow. So if anybody, unfortunately, you can't pop in and say hi to us right now, but in the near future, I hope you will. And our phone number is 702-714-1060, so 714-1060. And one thing people don't always realize, too, is that we can write insurance for the entire state of Nevada. So where we used to live in Elko, Nevada for 7 years, we love rural Nevada. And so sometimes people feel like, oh, my gosh, you have to live. I actually went to a realtor meeting the other day, and the realtor said, oh, there's no way you would do business with us. We're out in Laughlin. And I thought, are you kidding me? Insurance is written for the entire state. So if you can find a good agent that you can trust and you have maybe a condo in Reno or something, they can take care of all of that and be aware of everything that you've got, all the assets that you've got, and make sure that you're properly protected for the entire state. So we love what we do at Castle Insurance. Allstate has been a blessing for our family, too. We like being a part of helping people be protected and making sure that when bad things happen, because they do, we want to make sure our people are protected.
All right, yeah, thank you for being on the show. I'm going to make sure we put your contact information on the show notes so people can look at that as well. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to get to all the other types of insurance that are out there, but I think we had some great content. And as always, to our listeners, please like and subscribe. Give us reviews. Let us know what you guys want to see on the show the next time, so we can make sure that it's relevant to you. So thank you, Thad and Summer, for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Blake. We appreciate it.
Blake's great, by the way.
Thank you for that. So with that, we'll sign it off, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.